Hello, Abnormal Investigations. I've got another encounter for you guys. I think you're going to enjoy this one. It was sent in to me, and I thought, you know what? Let's go ahead and get it out. This one comes out of British Columbia, so let's talk about this one a little bit. My story begins outdoors. My friend, who I'll call Ricky, and I enjoyed hikes through the woods. We always found it a great way to relax after the work week. And so every Saturday, we'd make the 30 or so kilometer drive to Mount Ediza. It's a beautiful national park in northwestern British Columbia, featuring a huge amount of woods that climb the gradual slopes of the mountain. This day was no different from our usual. We were working our way up the trail, occasionally photographing the natural scenery. Now keep in mind, this park is very isolated, as in the middle of nowhere. It's a minimum hour drive from the nearest town, and the lack of accessibility led to it being one of BC's less popular parks. Very rarely do you ever meet another person on the trails. That's why when he first mentioned it, I thought he was messing with me. I was bending down to tie my boot when Ricky quietly says, "Whoa," out loud. I looked up and I asked him, "What is it?" He glances at me before turning and searching up the path. "I just saw some girl up there." And I said, "Where?" He said, "Up there," he pointed, with his finger to the end of the visible trail. She was looking at us. And then the visible trail. I could see nothing. But he said she was looking at us, and then she disappeared up the path. I was puzzled. I asked him, what did she look like? He said, "I don't know, I barely saw her." I felt pretty strange after this. After all, it was late August. The weather was cloudy, and there was even a little bit of rain. We rarely saw people during the peak hiking days, so it was extremely unlikely he actually saw a person today. Despite that, Rick wasn't the type to lie for no reason, so I figured he really did see someone. We continued walking up the trail. As we neared where he said he saw the girl, we began to pick up on a smell. It was a faint at first, gradually increasing the closer we got to the bend of the path. The best way I could describe it was a bouquet of flowers. If you ever spent time in a florist shop, you know what I mean. It was heavy and concentrated, like we just walked into the room filled full of nothing but roses. Still, though, something about it was off. In some way, it was distracting, and it made me want to follow it. And he said, "Do you smell that?" And then I asked him right back the same question, "Do you smell that?" "Yeah," Ricky inhaled deeply through his nose. "What is it?" I shook my head, not bothering to reply because I really didn't know. We looked around, and despite how strong it was, we didn't see anything that could have been responsible for the particular smell. Now, the forest along the mountains is lush with full life, but it's prominently trees. There are wildflowers, and there's no way the floral aroma would have been this strong just from the wildflowers. We stopped at the bend of the path to drink from our water bottles, sitting on a large fallen tree. There weren't any people or anything else on the ordinary trails ever at this time of year. Aside from the strange smell, eventually we moved up the path again, after about 50 footfalls. The flower smell seemed to stay the same, more or less, no matter how far we walked. We worked our way through the rest of the hike pretty quickly, and yes, the flowery smell remained constant the entire time. We eventually theorized that some rare, extra stinky flower was in bloom on the mountainside, which served as an explanation enough. A medium fog seemed to settle over the mountain, which wasn't anything new. As we walked through, we began to realize something was off. I was the first one to notice it. It felt like I was being hit with a wave of deja vu. "Hey, Rick, does this tree look familiar?" Ricky looked at me and followed my hand, seeing where I was pointing. "Wait, didn't we pass that half an hour ago?" Somehow, without being aware of it, we were back at the fallen tree we took a break at before. We followed the path the entire time, and we knew it didn't loop, so it was impossible we were back here. Seriously, what the hell? How did we get back here? Rick seemed a little alarmed also, and a little worried. And I told him, I said, "I don't know. We should just head back." Rick looked at me for a moment before nodding, "I guess so," and he whispered, Let's go. I remember how the fallen tree was right at the peak of the path before it turned. That let us see all the way down the hill, and we should have been able to see approximately where we entered from. When we looked down the trail, though, preparing to head back, what we saw was unnerving. The path went down like it should, but right at the lowest point where it should have swerved into the opening of the woods, it went back up the hill again, and it was like the entire forest was mirrored somehow. And at the very end of the hill, we could just make out two standing there, wearing the exact same clothes we were. We both didn't know how to act. We both asked each other, "Do you see that?" I was already staring when Ricky frantically pointed toward the other peak, where our duplicates stood. He walked forward a little. "What the hell, man? What the hell's going on? Did we die? Was there an accident?" I had to calm Ricky down a lot. He was very hysterical. And when I got him calmed down, that's whenever we noticed that the man, who was dressed exactly like Ricky, seemed to move further away. Rather quickly, given the circumstances, we were able to comprehend that people we saw were mirroring our movements, or perhaps were mirroring theirs. My friend looked at me with his hands on his head. "What do we do?" "I don't know, dude. I had no idea what to do." I said, "Let's just get back." So without another word, we started descending down the hill. As we did, the other pair of men seemed to go down the hill, and they faded out of our view. To our relief, keep in mind the smell of flowers was still very potent in the air. We finally got to the low point between the two slopes, and as we did, the rain picked up from the light drizzle and the heavy one. "Let's hurry it up," I said. Ricky said, "Yeah, let's double time it." A rather brisk few minutes later, we were at the top of the hill, where we were once again greeted by the fallen tree, both in front of us and behind us. The situation was the same. Reality seemed to be mirrored in both directions. We could see copies of ourselves sitting atop of the hill just like we were. Ricky was starting to panic, trying to be logical. I decided to get out my phone, preparing to document whatever in the world was happening. To my dismay, the device wouldn't turn on. It was a new premium smartphone with almost full battery, and it was completely unresponsive. The screen just remained black as I pushed the power button. I asked Ricky to try his. Rick got out his phone, and it didn't work either. At this point, the sky was beginning to get dark, and the rain was pouring. "It's not working. What the hell do we do, man?" I shook my head, having no idea, and that's when we heard the voice. "Are you boys lost?" The voice was mature and feminine. It was well enunciated, but coded in a thick accent. I'm not very good with this dialect, but I'd like to guess it was probably European. We both turned and looked at the side of the path and into the woods. About 10 feet in front of us, seated casually on a stump, was a woman, but no ordinary woman. The moment I saw her, I felt as if I was intoxicated. She was sitting, but we could tell she was tall, taller than either of us. She was slim, yet very toned. She had a fair skin with no visible imperfections, and her hair was short and jet black. I can easily say she was the most beautiful person I've ever seen. I inexplicably felt mesmerized by her. Her outfit, though, was the weirdest of all. She wore a dress, like one you'd expect to see at a party, and it was accessorized by a large black sun hat. Very strangely, her clothes showed no signs of being wet or weathered at all, and despite us being in the middle of the storm, we both gazed at her in awe. She stood up, walking toward us. Well, she strutted as if a catwalk. Are you not?" Rick's tongue was completely tied. I managed to stammer out a few words, though. As she came close to us, it became suddenly apparent she was the source of the floral smell. That isn't good." She turned away from us, lost on a mountain, especially in this fog. That's just a recipe for trouble. And that's when we noticed that the fog, which was quiet then before, suddenly was very heavy. We couldn't even see our feet in front of us. I nudged Ricky and whispered, "Dude, is that who you saw before?" He whispered in reply, "Yeah, 100%. She turned back around, looking at us as if we were waiting to say something. She seemed to be evaluating us with her piercing blue eyes. "Well, come on then." She waved her hand and began pacing down the mountain. We followed on command again. I can't explain it, but the woman was enchanting in every unnatural way, and it left us practically helpless. It was only for a few minutes before she stopped. The entire time, though, her dress didn't get any wetter from the rain, and it was as if she had an invisible umbrella. You can't take it from, she said, you can take it from here, I suppose. She turned back around and faced us. And as she did in the fog, then back to regular levels. That's when I realized that we were back at the start of the trail, only a few meters into the woods. The exit and the parking lot were visible. She moved to the side, allowing us to pass. We walked by, still in a trance. Before we exited the woods, though, I turned around and I wanted to thank her. It's hard to explain, but I wanted to get one last look at her. When I turned around, though, she was gone, and I didn't see how she could have gotten out of sight. It was like she had just disappeared. I stood there, bewildered, searching the mountains with my eyes and seeing no one, only the dropping rain. Ricky grabbed my shoulder. Come on, man, let's get out of here. And without another word, I followed him back to the SUV. We got into the driver's seat, and we left. I did do some search online, and what I found was it was likely a witch, or some sort of a witch's coven was doing something on the mountain. They are good at making delusions and doing certain things to men. Do you believe this was a witch, Mike? We're looking for answers. You know, it's hard to tell what you ran into. There's so many evil spirits and demons out there, and people that do practice black magic. So yeah, very possible could have been a witch. Could have been just an evil person practicing something they shouldn't have been. Could have been a demon. Anything. What do you all think? Let me know in the chat. Thanks for listening, guys. Until next time, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. And we'll see you on the next one.
I can see